Greetings, everyone, and welcome back. Well, he's sorting himself out. He's got a cup of tea, which is therefore the most important of all things. If we're going
Gotta
to
have tea,
record
mate.
on record of an evening, but we've done this a few times before, and yeah, exactly. We've got to do it again. Uh, we're throwing it under the hockey stories banner because we're kind of touching base because we have done for over the last couple of years. Owner, head coach, uh, head head fool in charge of the whole Seahawks. Matty Davies joins me on the line. Matty, busy summer.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, mate, they're always pretty busy. And yeah, I mean, it's like I think over the past sort of 4 years, I think it's slightly changed a little bit every year. I think this year has been sort of a little bit of an adjustment in terms of sort of reading where we are as a group and sort of trying to make as much of a change as I can with what you've got at your disposal. But yeah, it's always busy, mate. I'm definitely a fool, that's for sure. So that you got that one right. But yeah, I mean, it's nearly there now, mate. I think we've got a couple of weeks, and it comes around quick.
Certainly, it's been I think back, and it was the 5th of April, 2022, when I gotten off the phone with a source who will understandably remain nameless, and I stuck something out into the ether that said, hearing that maybe, just maybe, National Division hockey in Hull isn't as dead as first imagined. I'm trying to find out more. We'll be asking around. So that was a better part. That's over 3 years ago now. There's obviously a few bits and pieces you guys have not managed to achieve yet. There's no trophy in the cabinet as of yet. You and I have spoken in the past about some of the tough times financially in those early days that the club went through. But as a club, right now, as we are talking at the beginning of August 2025, where are the Hull Seahawks? Is everything going according to plan?
I think sort of the answer probably in two parts. First and foremost, as a business, which is what this is, we're in a really strong position. Financially, we've, like any business, I guess, but definitely in this sport, as you know well, really difficult, mate. It's really difficult no matter sort of how long you've been doing it, how short you've been doing it. I think it's every year is a challenge. If anyone, even clubs like MK, Sheffield Steelers, there's always issues and there's always things that are made difficult no matter what your revenue streams are. So, you're always trying to innovate and change and get better. The biggest thing for me, over the past 4 years is, I promised and sort of, told everybody that I wanted to be here for a long, long time. And at that time, when you say it, you're just sort of saying it as a, the sort of, I guess, me coming back as like the ex-player and stuff. It's like, a few things to throw out there and hopefully people can, buy into it and back it as like this, this leader chant or whatever it is. You don't fully realize that that's going to be, doable at that time. But we now know that we are going to be, and purely just down to, and touch wood here. Obviously, we never know what can happen. Obviously, COVID was. Shane Smith will have said the same thing to you, and then COVID happened. So I'm not, I'm not sat here being delusional by any means, but where I think the business is now, certainly to where it was, and also with previous sort of being involved in the clubs beforehand, I think we're in a stronger position now than probably it's ever been. In lots of factors are sort of help with that. It's always difficult working with councils, and it will never not be. It's just the nature of the beast that there is not enough rinks in this country. You know, you'll know as well with Basingstoke, there's now about, I don't honestly know, in Hull there must be 10 different rec teams in different leagues and different stuff. Add that to the full junior system, add that to now the Jets having more games, add that to having us having a million games a year. It's really hard for the rink. I think everyone jumps on the council and says, you know, they don't do a great job. It's nigh on impossible, I would say, to make that a smooth operational running, just purely down to there's just not enough rinks and too many teams and not enough hours in the day to fit everyone in. That's really difficult. That won't change. And then, you know, commercially, you know, we've done a lot of good things. Like I mentioned all the time whenever I speak to anyone, but for me, getting the branding right was key to this. Going back to the name, which we've spoke about previously in depth, was sort of a calculated decision and one that I felt like was the right time. But then with that, getting the branding right, you know, being involved in other businesses, namely the gym, the world of today is very much a media-driven world, and getting the media right and the marketing right, you know, is key. And the biggest part of that is the branding. If you don't have the brand right, it's very difficult to market. So, you know, that was one thing that we really did want to get right, and I think we did. And the second part of the answer is, on the ice, I don't think we sort of, how can I answer this? I look at it in sort of two ways. If I look at it purely with just sort of ahead of like, look, we didn't have a team 4 years ago, and now look what we're doing. We've pretty much established the fourth spot in the past couple of years. I obviously want more than that, but I'm pretty proud of just sort of being able to go from sort of where we was to where we are now. I can't be happy with it. I've got to keep striving to try, and I always say it in every interview, someone's got to try and catch leads. But I think the league's so competitive now, and owners are doing such a good job now that it's really difficult across the full league now, and it's really exciting. And I think the league this year is again took another big step forward, not only with the import thing. I think that's a part of it, but I actually think the British player that we're getting into this league now, I think we're nearly there with really making it more of an attractive place to come and play for. Certainly, these youth sport guys and these guys that are coming out of college that have maybe got 1 year under the belt somewhere. I think it looks an attractive place to come now. And I think that's, again, a massive part of this. And me and Aaron and Nell spoke about this, but I think the next step for the league, I'm jumping all over here, but I think would be to get, players from our league to leave and go to bigger leagues or higher leagues. And I think that's probably the step next for this league. But yeah, going back to sort of us, I think I'm really happy where the club is. Where we are is in a solid position, and what that does is make the second part, easier and better, and allows me to push more. And I've certainly pushed this year, so we'll see what happens.
Well, gone are the days of your wife complaining to the local MP about your imports not turning up and not being allowed into the country. But we will hit the elephant in the room, nail on the head as much as we can do. Matty, over the last 2 seasons, your team has averaged 4 goals against per game. We have gained an extra import, and you have gone for a defence that has 2 players over the age of 25 and 4 import forwards. I mean, you've already said you're a fool. People are scratching their heads on this one, Matty.
Yeah, I think I would be, to be honest, looking at it. I'd speaking on it sort of just pretty plainly like that, I think, yeah, it looks a pretty crazy decision. Again, it's all I can do, mate, is sort of go with what I think we've got, and what I think is the right play for the team that we've got. I've said this over and over. I might be wrong, mate. And again, I'm pretty clear with this, and I'm pretty open and honest. I mean, I do a lot of these things. It'll only be my fault. I'm the one that's done it. So that's fine. I can live with that one. But I think sort of why I've done it. I think there's a couple of reasons that we can go into, and I think first and foremost, I mentioned this to the Macca's boys.
Mm-hmm.
Look, it's really there is a certain amount of British player that I regard, and I think all coaches do in the top sort of British player.
That upper echelon, has an amount of people in it, and a large number of them are forwards, and a smaller number of them are your stay-at-home defensemen.
Exactly. And look, I think everyone's clambering for the same ones. I think obviously, geographically, that plays a massive part of it. So you're going to get the ones, i.e. the Bobby Chamberlains, the Kieran Browns, the, Glenn Billings, these are all things that are a given. But then away from that, there's these groups of players that, everyone's going for, right? And, I was going pretty heavily on certain players, and I think that sort of changed my plans completely when they didn't come off. And I basically just looked at my team, and I felt like it was a pretty honest question in the mirror with myself, that how can I change this team enough? And quite honestly, mate, it was if I get 3 import forwards back, which it would have been the 3 back most likely. And again, sort of going back to that that also plays a part in the decision. But if I had the 3 boys back and I got an import D-man, some of them players that I maybe didn't get to fill them British spaces, I felt like the team would have been very similar, and sort of similar in the sense of, look, yes, you missed that 25 minute a night top guy, but I think it comes back to, again, and we spoke about this again on the Maccas, but I do think people have overlooked the Dave Phillips thing and what we missed last year. And I think, again, I'm obviously putting a lot of stock into that. But the biggest thing for me, mate, is the fact of it is I am not looking at this as a forward and D situation. I'm looking at it as a whole unit. And that's basically the decision why.
I think as well we probably have to touch on this because, of course, one of the large reasons you and I are speaking ahead of this was because, of course, the news has come out that the Seahawks are now linked up with the Manchester Storm, and obviously, I mean, I will certainly want to I kind of want to mention about Theo Malone, born in 2009. Go away, you are too young. I feel so old with all of these kids now playing. Senior hockey. Josh Crawley, of course, a very known commodity in the league. But you've added arguably 2 of the people will look at your D unit, and obviously it's their first proper full whack season at this level. But in Noah Kerrainen and Tommy Spraggan, you've added 2 of the best young defensive prospects in the country to your back end to go alongside Davy Phillips, who, sorry, Davy, technically old enough to be both their dads.
Yeah, he is. But,
So sorry about that, Davey. But yeah, not sorry. Are people overlooking this D unit? Because a lot of people have quite obviously made a lot of fuss about the top 9. Owen Sobchak coming back, Emil Svet coming back, Johnny Cornell coming back, Bobby obviously back to lead from the front as he does, never goes backwards to Bobby Chamberlain, but Jason Hewitt. Lee Bonner's back as well. A lot of fuss has been made about this top 9. And you talk about the fact that, yes, it's all about sort of a unit thing. Your 5-on-5 team defense, certainly a couple of years ago, was one of the things a lot of people made a big noise about. But are we overlooking this D unit? Do you think? I think a lot of people have instantly just gone, and I've said it before, and I know we've talked about it as well. Hull hockey, by history, is Vindaloo hockey. We're going to score one more than you. So yes, you can see 4 goals a game, but you're able to score 5, 6, and 7. Can this D unit, if we get a fit Davy Phillips for 8 months, if Noah and Tommy land full time in this league, like you think they can, and with the back end of Jordan McLaughlin and Dimitri Zamolstra, who are clearly good enough to win games at this level, are we sleeping on your defence?
I would say, yeah. I've mentioned that before.
That's done.
Yeah, I would say, yeah. No. Do you know what? I think it's an easy one. I think it's an easy one to look at and go, yeah, for sure. They're so top heavy, but I think that's probably a bit of a compliment on the fact that our top 9 is extremely strong. There's no denying that, and that's obviously what I've gone for. It then just sort of looks like shot the D just to nowhere near it. I have changed the D quite considerably from last year. I know it only looks like I have a couple of guys, but it is quite a difference. And the biggest thing to it is it's a lot younger. They're a really good skating D course, so everybody on there can all skate. And I think that at the end of the day, I can only say this as many times. We will see. I'm extremely high on Tommy Spraggan. I know we've spoke about it privately, and
I'm very high. I've been very high on Tommy Spraggan for a very long time.
Yeah. I am pretty confident. I think he's the best, under 21 British D-man that there is currently. I think it's honestly his growth and his sort of where I think his ceiling can go in the next couple of years, I think is really big. And again, the Noah Kariainen one was one that's been sort of in the background now for a while, but it's such a big one for me that I think, again, he's 18, so it can easily be overlooked, but this kid has got some serious game to him. And I think it's, again, one of them that's easily overlooked in a sense of surely that's not enough. But look, again, it's one of them where I think what we've added are pieces to that decor that I don't think we had last year. And whether they're import or British or older or younger, I just think, like I mentioned, I think overall we are stronger defensively. It just looks a lot top heavy. Now, there's no denying it, mate. We aren't going to change in terms of style and system. We will be the same. There is going to be a thing of you are going to give up a chance. You are. Now, what I actually think is, obviously I've spoke about this, I thought both goalies probably underperformed last year. Now, Dima coming into a completely new system and a new team. We've spoke about this at length with him. That was a change for him. And I think that's completely different system that is not played ever. We all know what the Steel Dogs were very good at under Morgs and going back even before that. Very solid on D, didn't let you get inside, all shots from the outside. And it's different, right? We play a tight gap game, mate. There will be times when there is going to be chances, and again, obviously, what I've tried to do is make us way deeper. We're going to be limiting minutes of everybody. Everyone's minutes are coming down, which you would hope the intensity then and the speed goes up from everyone. So, like I say, there's obviously a plan there, but we've got to wait and see what happens, especially with these young boys, to see how they cope with it all.
Yeah, but 15 forwards technically on your roster at the moment. Yeah, someone's losing minutes somewhere at the moment. The thing I noticed about your D, a lot of righties. There's only 2 lefties in that D core.
Yeah, that was not part of the plan. That was not part of the plan. It was, I think the one that everyone would be probably asking is the Hayward situation, which again is one that will probably come out fairly soonish in terms of what he's doing. So there is that. So, but yes, really difficult to find left-handed D-men, mate, British.
Yeah.
So it's tough, and obviously bringing Fugalis over was a lot of that reason was the fact he's left-handed. Bringing Josh back from the start, being full-time, again, I think is an overlooked signing. I think he's got a lot of game and someone that fits into our system really well.
Well, another lefty, but he's definitely not on the back end that you brought over, and one I think, given your forward depth, I think certainly will cause a lot of interest, and certainly causes a lot of interest for me because I'm just wondering where he fits in. Callie Robertson, brought down from the Solway Sharks, generally regarded in that sort of that upper end, able to kind of play, can play top line minutes, can also play kind of third line minutes, able to kind of perform a variety of functions. Where's he going to fit in? Where's he fitting into this? Because I think a lot of people have, not unreasonably, an established group in their minds. Yeah. I mean, there's one line that I think we all know, and people who've watched the National Division over the last year or so can probably nail at least one of your lines on right now before we even start. So I'm interested as to where Callie fits into the
So Callie was sort of a hand-picked player that I really wanted for a certain reason, and I think it sort of runs alongside sort of the Stallard signing also. Look, Johnny Cornell is a seriously good ice hockey player, just an all-round really good player. And I think last year it was just really difficult to find the right mix of really what we wanted. Obviously, the first line is the line that is sort of unbreakable. I tried to break it up last year to try and make a different look, but I mean, it's just one of them where sometimes a line picks itself in terms of how they all play. They all want to play with each other. They all know how each other play. It's just one of them things. And then the second line was a real, decision to be made on sort of where I go with it. Johnny likes playing centre, but for me, Johnny can do what I wanted this year was more centres, and I wanted to be able to, if we ever missed somebody, we are obviously we do get suspensions. Let's just put it out there. We have been known to get one or two. I didn't want to be in a situation next year where we are ever lacking in anywhere where you can't win games, and one of them for me is in the middle. Down the middle, if you're not right, I think you're really going to struggle. So bringing Geordie in, it was sort of one that again was sort of handpicked in terms of Johnny's played with Geordie before at U Sports, and they've got a great relationship. They know how each other play already. Stallard is an out and out centre, a 6'2" centre that just is a centre. And Johnny is someone that is so versatile and can play with people. And honestly, you can throw him with anybody. But I really wanted the most out of Johnny this year, and I felt like bringing Stallard in would really help Johnny with that. And the Callie signing was again one that I think we've seen Callie over the past 2 years. Mainly, playing with sort of the two up there that I did, predominantly in Gardiner and Dunbar. I felt like he was a real big part of that line. And obviously them two had a real good relationship. Obviously the two imports, one being a passer, one being a shooter, which was great. But I think it was maybe Callie was overlooked a little bit in the job that he did for them. Because to be someone on that third guy on a line, which is probably quite a shit job sometimes to be that guy when it's pretty obvious that
where it's going.
And that can be tough, I guess. But I felt like he did so well at that. He's someone that skates really, really well. He gets pucks back. He hunts pucks really good. And I think if you look at his numbers at times when he's played with imports or top guys, let's just say, his numbers have been really good. Last year, there was a clear drop off, but the year before, good numbers. And then obviously going back to his Bristol days when he did play with Sobs and, with imports, we've seen the numbers that he can produce. So it was sort of that in mind.
So between, I was going to say, you talk about your depth at the middle, just with your roster list in front of me in terms of who can play centre. We've got Geordie Stallard, Owen Sobchuk, Johnny Corneal, Lee Bonner, Owen Bruton, and I believe Ethan Hare has played centre in the past at times before, giving you 6 people up the middle. So if you lose centre depth, that's on you, mate. Let's talk about the Storm then, because we've talked a little bit about Noah, not unreasonably. Josh Crawley is a player I got to commentate on last year a couple of times and seen with my own eyes, and he's clearly very, very good. Theo is a child, but explain how this all came around, because of course there was the link up with Manchester last year, resulting in Johnny Corneal's loan, which is now permanent in terms of him not having any obligations in that sense to the Storm anymore. But there was obviously clearly a bit of a relationship and the discussion that had happened with Ryan Finney in the past. Why firm it up? Why make this an official thing that happens?
Yeah, I think, again, probably a couple of things. I think, we have had a good relationship with them going back even to our first year. They helped us out a couple of times that year with, we had Lutwich come over. We've had sort of the second year, we actually had Brock Bartholomew was training with Manchester. So there's been several things over the years that has sort of helped us and helped them, I guess. But I get on with Finity really well. We speak probably every summer anyway, so we, talking about two ways, talking about this, situation. It's been something that has sort of been floated around for the past couple of years now. And look, I don't think it's a thing of Sheffield have done it, so I think it's definitely worked. I don't think it's that. I think it's for the game itself. I think it's the right thing to do. I think it's something that is clearly very difficult to make work, because there's so much in terms of their own team's interest. I think you've got to be a specific sort of person to be willing to understand that them kids, do want to be at that level. And there's going to be times where you might lose a player. But for me, it outweighs it completely when, we can bring someone like Noah in for the full season or the most of the year, with, that as a view. They've viewed it as, he needs a full year with you guys. They're really high on him. Maybe, next year or the year after, maybe he does start making that jump. But for them, I think it's pretty important that they have trust in whoever they're sending the players to. They're not my players. They're their players. It's up to them what happens. So, pretty sort of, I think it's pretty good that they can trust us with their young talent, let's say. Me and Finner have got quite a similar look on the game in terms of, quite a hard work first sort of, style of play, which I think sort of blends itself well as also. And then I think the Johnny thing really helped this whole thing last year, because they really didn't want to lose Johnny. I think they felt pretty bad about it at the time. It was just one that they felt like they needed to do, which I get that, because I've been in that situation with literally Johnny and having to get rid of, Caden Hannes last year. It's not something that you ever want to do. It's just, look, Johnny Corneal's available. I'd be stupid if I didn't take that. But in no way would you ever want to get rid of a guy, right? It's just not sort of the human side of he did nothing wrong. Johnny did nothing wrong. It's just, that's how it goes, right? So I think the fact that they came to us first, and asked us, exclusively to start with, I felt like that made me trust them and sort of appreciate them a little bit more in terms of, they're willing to ask us and they want a guy like Johnny to come to us. We're really lucky that Johnny's come here and absolutely loved it, wants to stay. That's awesome. So, Yeah, and I think just overall, mate, I think for me, I don't see any negatives to it. I think it's essentially, we have got pre-season games lined up, which, as them games are going to be what they are, just a skate and a run out. Let's hope it don't kick off. Let's just be honest here, because we don't want. I don't think either team wants that. I certainly don't. I don't need Bobby Chamberlain, going around with the baton and trying to, So it's.
You've been warned, Bobby. You've been warned.
Yeah,
please.
Yeah, but and I think for them as well, it's the same thing. That it's a good skate. It's a good test for us. I think it's good for the league again. To sort of see them games. I know MK did it with Coventry. Was it Coventry? I think they played.
Yeah. They're playing the Coventry again this year.
Yeah. So I think it's good for the league. I think it looks good. I think it's one of them things that we should see more often. There's a clear massive divide in the leagues, but I think it is. I think on one-off games, I think you can make them competitive, and I think it will be for a certain amount of the game, right? So, I think it's, like I said, I don't see any negatives to it, mate. I think it's positive. There's also an element of, look, if we want to bring someone over next year from U Sports coming out, and he's maybe on that bubble of not quite ready with the numbers for the Elite League, but we can take him for a year, with a view to them moving to the Storm. I think we're both, me and Finner are both pretty clear that would be a good situation to have. And like I say, mate, I played there. It helps. I think it's just a natural thing. I don't think there's any negatives to it. I think it's great, the fact that we get these three lads, and that's the first and foremost. We really do. We win on the deal for now. Look, no doubt there's going to be issues during the year. In terms of, look, they want their players to play. If I think they're not ready to play, then again, there's a decision to be made on what they do then, right? Theo Malone is a kid, an absolute child, like you mentioned. But I'm hearing nothing but this kid is pretty special. And if
they're good enough, they should play. This is the thing that always scratches heads. I remember very vividly a conversation you and I had about Owen Bruton standing in the bench in Basingstoke, and you telling me very, very clearly, like, this kid's good enough, and that's why I've got him here, which is definitely from the mentality you've had in the past. And Owen's obviously developing into a very, very high end talent in this league. I mean, you mentioned there as well that you win on the deal for now. I think this is something that certainly I've accused Elite League fans, probably more than and on occasion Elite League owners of it, is that sometimes it's very easy to be a little bit short-sighted because because British hockey is such a hand-to-mouth industry. Everybody wants everything now. But I think there's something to be said for the fact that if Manchester fans, what they might get in a year, 2 years, particularly of Noah and Josh, who are much closer to that being ready element, what they might get down the road is going to be pretty substantial for them. They just have to wait a little bit for it, is the only issue from their side.
Yeah, that's it. And I think there's always going to be, some of that. But what I would say is, the sort of the switched on fans, the ones that have been involved in it for, more than a couple of years, would understand that them players are only going to go back to Manchester, or whenever they start playing as a full-time player, they're only going to be better players for doing what they've done. We both know that Noah Carrianen is potentially one of the elite British D-men in the country, but he's only played 12 games in this league. So for me, he's got to play a full season. Touch what he does, but we know how talented he is. But that, again, we need to also do the kid and Manchester a favour by bringing this lad on. There's no way he's ready for that league yet. With 12 games of national league under his belt. And it works the same way with everybody, right? And I think the deal, again, just touching on it, their fans, I think, should be fairly excited just on the fact of, forget Noah and Josh and Theo. You've got Tommy Spraggan and Owen Bruton sat there that, again, are the two premier kids that we've got under our in our club. And for me, they're both the two ones that I would be, and I've all already mentioned this, and there might be something happening with them too, maybe, but for me, there's a potential to really get, I think Owen Bruton's a player that could easily play in the Elite League at some stage. I know I mentioned that to you when he was a kid. He'll never not be someone that can just be put into a game and be ready. He's just got that mindset. He's got that ability to be able to just know where he is on the ice. I obviously think very highly of him. But again, Tommy Spraggan, we know this. There's not British D-men aren't growing on trees here. I look at the national team, and they're short on D, they are for sure. And at some stage, they will have to look at this league. I look at the D that are in here at the minute in terms of the young British ones, and you're looking at people like Stenton, who's again played in that league a little bit, but for me, he's improved coming to this level. Now, it's really tough for us to tell elite league owners and coaches that that's the case, because they just, maybe just don't believe it until they see him in elite league games, or, but as we know, watching this league for a long time, yes, it's a different level. It's a different game almost. But for me, like them D-men, them British D-men that are at the top, in our league, I think they've got to start looking, because, like I mentioned, for me, Tommy Spraggan as a 20-year-old, 21-year-old, I don't think there's anyone better. Martinelli is another one. Let's just be honest here. Like, they're out there, but they're not sort of, I mean, Martinelli, I know, has made that two-way jump. And hopefully, look, I think for me, like at some stage, these kids are going to get a chance. And it's on them, really. It's on them to go there and prove that they can do it, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've had a few. There's been those, like you say, there's a few that feel like they're sort of on the bubble a little bit. Obviously, Billy Thorpe's is going to be training with Coventry this year. How much you'll get to play, obviously, kind of remains to be seen on that front. Ben Solder has now made the move full time back to the Elite League, of course, formerly with Manchester. Now with Guildford for this year, which is something Guildford needed to do, having lost Sam Jones to Belfast. There's something to kind of be said, I think, in that way, because you having listened to an interview Matt Hayward actually did earlier this week with the 3-on-3 podcast, about the fact that he said that the level of the national division is definitely higher than some people in the level above think that it is, and it's getting people to realize that, because I think especially where you have played in it. And I've now got this very, very odd position where I've watched a lot and watched a bit and talked a lot about both now, and what I'm about to start doing. And there are marked differences. It would be foolish of us to say that the national division teams are better than elite league teams, but it does feel like at some stage, particularly if the national team is going to be our focus, there has to be a way to be found to close that gap. And the way for me personally, as the person who doesn't get to do any of the picking or any of the choosing, feels like getting more of those younger guys the opportunity to looking at that higher level, however that looks, whether it's more training, whether you turn the Challenge Cup into a no games, however many guys you want kind of rule kind of thing, and what they do with that. Where you're now in a link up with an elite league team, what's that discussion that you've had, if any, with Ryan Finnerty? Because Ryan's obviously trusting you to take these young guys and look after them. Cam Critchlow, new head coach of the Storm, is obviously going to have a piece of this as well. But they're obviously trusting you to do something with them. But what what is there? Is there a discussion there really about like genuinely, lads, we are going to do something with him, and you're going to get back a better player than what you got before?
Yeah, I'd say plainly yes. I think there's been a discussion on that. I mean, it's what I would say is it just wouldn't have happened if the trust weren't there. I think you've just got to trust that person sort of knows. You've got to trust that they know what they're doing, and at the end of the day, this has happened before these decisions were made in terms of the Johnny Corneal situation. Yeah. We'd be daft if we didn't think that he hadn't spoke to them and sort of had some sort of, yes, this is, we are doing this, we do this, and it's really good here. So I think that's the first thing. I think that the talk is, look, again, we could go on this all night, but it's really difficult to, and Matt Hayward's bang on, it's really difficult to get it through to sort of the elite league people that have only ever been in the elite league, i.e. Finity is one of them, and there's plenty of other ones that are up there. It's really hard to get them to understand that, yes, this league is getting better, and everyone can say that, but it's not only getting better, it's actually getting better in a sense of there's more structure, there's more coaching, and there's more individual coaching. Everyone does video now. Everyone helps out with, I would imagine, their younger players and trying to improve them players. I think we're all now at a stage where, I look at all the head coaches in the league and I'd say that the majority of them must be full-time now. If not, then nigh on nearly full-time or whatever that looks like. And I would be really surprised knowing a lot of them if they're not now focusing on actually trying to make these players better. We always say this, that there's not enough of this, there's not enough of that. How about we just make our players better individually? How about we actually, it's something that's a real sort of not a taboo subject, but it's something that we just never hear about in terms of just because you're 18, just because you're 21, just because you're 25, you can't improve as a player and actually get better as a player. Whether that means you're in the elite league or you're in this league, I don't see any reason why that individual player cannot improve. Now, there's no doubt that Noah Carrion and Josh and Theo training with Manchester Storm, better quality of player, import, they are going to do things on that ice and be sort of exposed to a real level that will only make them better players. But again, the real key for me is actually being able to implement whatever that is into real game situations, which we know only does actually make that player better. You can do whatever you want on training. You can go through as much video and anything you want. But if them players are playing and implementing them things into games, it's really, it's a difficult sell. And what it is essentially, mate, is just like I mentioned in the first thing, until we can get players to go from this league up to the elite league or up to the French league or up to so-and-so league, it's really difficult to then get people from around Europe and the elite league to trust this league as a league that is really competitively good now, where good players are not only coming, but players that have been in there are actually improving and the product's a lot better. The gap between us and the elite league will never get small enough to make it a fair situation. It's impossible, just purely down. I mean, you'll know this, but they talk about it being unfair within the league, just from, the arena teams to the, the traditional ice rink teams. So I think making it fair is not possible. But like I said, we make our individual players better, British players better. We then see them go on to two-way situations. Me sending Bruce and Spraggs to Finner, seeing them in training. Oh yeah, that looks okay. then they get that chance in a game maybe, and let's see what they can do. And then it snowballs from there, right? We really like this kid. We're going to keep him for some games, but he's going to come back to you and keep playing the majority of his hockey. Yeah. I believe if that can happen at a regular bit, in a regular sort of, with no sort of, egos involved, and no, we need this player we're playing against, so-and-so tomorrow. I think that's all got to go out the window. And if you're not willing to do that, then, like I mentioned before, you've got to be a specific person, I think, because you will lose players. You are going to lose some players. I've got a lot of players on my roster this year. We've actually got 5 lines of forwards. Now, there's a reason for that. And one of these is simply because of the Manchester situation. And I want a real fight for a spot. I want to change the entitledness of just thinking that you're on that team, and it's yours and it can't be taken away. So that's sort of within our team's battle, but that goes upwards towards Manchester as well. It's like, who wants that chance? They might have Theo in mind, but what if Bruce is just playing better than him and just clearly is a better player? Yes, Theo's from Manchester. They've got ties with Theo, but at the end of the day, it's like they just want the best players that they can, British players. All these teams up there have only got 5, 6 spaces for British players. They all want the best British players that they can. It's on us to make them players good enough to, thrive at this level and then go to that level and really get a chance and do it. I.e. Bailey Harewood that we're seeing today make that jump. It's great. I hope he goes and gets a chance and plays and can actually implement what he does in this league sometimes over there.
The pre-season though, not too far away. Obviously, we're actually going to be able to finally see some of these guys in the ice. But we do need to touch on what is technically the first game of your pre-season, Saturday, the 30th of August, the Matty Davies testimonial. How competitive is this really going to be? Because I keep saying these things about how it's going to be a competitive game, and all the legends are coming back. We've seen the names rattling their way off on the Seahawks social media. Are we sure there's not vodka going in the water bottles for this one?
I mean,
probably not. Given you got Manchester the next night.
Yeah, but, I know. So originally, I would have said, yeah, there's probably a good chance of it. But now, because of the Manchester game, obviously that'll be all knocked on the head. Look, I think whenever one of these games happens, it's always the same sort of thing. They go into it with that sort of jokey mindset. But then as soon as you get on the ice and you get going, it's like, it's one of them things. What I have done is make sure that, we've got quite a few players on the team that are still playing, and obviously taking a couple of out of the our team to make it sort of more fair than it should be. So I think it's one of them things that I can only ask them to try and get a good skate, but it'll be what it ends up being in terms of some of the old boys coming over, like Tendler and stuff. Like, he hadn't been on the ice for 2 years, and he says, he will have 10 beers probably before the game. So that's, you're not going to stop that.
How many is Pavel Gomenyuk going to have before he?
Well, exactly. Yeah, there you go.
On the ice.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's some proper old school names. Kevin Phillips, of course. Taking a step back onto the ice.
It'll be a good game, though, mate. I'm pretty confident that I think it'll be a good show. I think, there's, like I mentioned, there's enough people there that once the game gets going, it's like they'll get into it. They'll want to try. I'll obviously be saying that we want to win and put it on my team. And if I've got that on my own team all year that I beat them, I want that little check. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I like that.
Is it a bit? Does it feel a bit weird having a testimonial for yourself for the club that you own and founded?
Yeah, it's extremely weird. Yeah, I'll be lying if I'm fully comfortable with it. I'm a little bit more comfortable with it now. When it first happened, I was the biggest fan in terms of, you know, it's really hard when sort of you're the person that essentially has to make that last decision on it. I wasn't particularly involved in the decision of actually, you know, yeah, we're going to do it, which I think is key, because if you are, I think it's pretty. I mean, it's a tough look, that one.
Are we blaming Joe? Are we blaming Joe Lamplow? Is that what we're doing on there?
We've got to blame him, mate. Yeah, we've got to blame Joe. He don't get blamed for much, so we'll blame him for this one. So yeah, I mean, it is awkward, mate. But yeah, I'm obviously really proud, and obviously I think more than anything, what I've tried to do is make this more about Hull and what we've been able to do in the last 4 years. And I'm just sort of a part of that. But at the end of the day, I think it's really special what the full club has been able to do, and a lot of that is a nod to the past and, you know, sort of where we are now.
A few little ones as we sort of head towards the end of our time together. There's obviously a little bit a thing that went up on your social media then of create your own Hull Seahawks ice hockey jersey. If anybody does it in red and white colours, are they immediately banned?
Yeah.
For folk who aren't aware, rugby league is a big thing in Hull. How much did your social media people hate you when somebody showed them how to spell Kerarainen?
Yeah, she did say to me, and actually my wife said to me last night that this is going to be a right laugh to spell all year, because she does the shirts. So
and this is why it's already in. That's why I have it in my phone dictionary, and I saved it because I have the German phone dictionary turned on at all times. So A's with umlauts on it are nothing for me. And you spelled his name properly. This is what I'm saying to you, Aaron L. It's not Hoog, it's Herg. Spell it right.
Is that actually how it was meant to be said?
Yes.
Herg.
Jonas really? Herg. It's O with it's two O's with umlauts on it, so it's Herg rather than Hoog.
So that whole chant they used to do, the who never should have been a thing.
The irony of people not being able to spell when there's a library inside the building their rink is in was just clearly lost on everyone on that front. Matty, what I will ask it, knowing that I know exactly what your answer is going to be, but I need to ask it anyway, because sometimes you have to say the thing out loud, even if you know it. Come the end of the year, what does success look like for the Hull Seahawks in 25-26?
Look, I think last year I thought we really sort of let ourselves down on the cup front. You know, getting into that semi-final, I think obviously it's one that everyone wants to do. But we just didn't even give ourselves a chance in that, and that was disappointing. So that's a minimum for me. We've got to make sure that we're sort of in that fight. And then I mentioned this, I can't remember who to, but I was actually really proud of Aaron last year and what they was able to do. It sounds like, you know, they're like this low end, you know, like, you know, team that have not been going for, you know, 20 years or whatever it's been now. But look, I think everyone within the game knows that, yes, maybe the budget's similar, but, you know, it would be lying if we didn't know that Swindon, you know, just purely by seating and, you know, players that, you know, are around there are, you know, a little bit behind, definitely on MK and Leeds for sure. So, and that's just the plain facts of it. When you've got a 2,000-seater rink to fill, and I think it's 2.5 MKs or 3, I don't know.
Yeah, 2.5.
And Swindon's is, I mean, 1,500 with 700 standing round in it. So something like that, it's difficult. So I was real proud of them and what they was able to do in terms of just, they put it to them. They was in the fight at least for a pretty considerable amount of time. Now, yeah, they fell off. But for me, I want to be in that fight, mate. I want to make sure that we're, you know, come the end of the year, there's actually something that we're actually still going for. What I'd hate to be is sort of in that same boat where, you know, them last few weeks are just awful, mate. There's just really nothing going on. You know, it's people are getting sat and rested, and it's just, it's not a nice place to sit, because it's just essentially, you're in it for nothing. And I would be lying if we didn't. I think if we didn't get to Coventry this year, no matter what else happened, I think that would be deemed as a failure, mate. More than anything, forget sort of where I think our team is compared to everyone else's team. I think as a club, I think it's been sort of a few years now since we was there with the Pirates, and I think there's also always a lot of noise made by me on all these sorts of things, and I think it's time that we sort of put our money where our mouth is and actually turn up to the dance and get back to Cov. And I think it'd be great for the club, the fans, and everybody that's been with us. I think it'd just be a really good weekend. And I think that would be sort of, something that I'd be, okay, that was a good year,
Well, as ever, Matty, we say this virtually every summer, but all the best with it going forward as well. We will see what comes of it all. Remember, folks, Saturday, the 30th of August at the Hull Arena for the Matty Davies testimonial between the Hull Seahawks and whatever it is that we managed to hodgepodge onto the ice as an opposition, sober or not. And of course, they've also got pre-season games away in Manchester, and they've got games against Leeds and against Solway as well. Matty Davies, all the best for 25-26, mate.
Thank you, mate. Appreciate it. Always a pleasure.